Take those cookies back. Your bastard kids don't count as family, my mother snapped at the door. On Christmas night, I replied, then freeze in the mess you created, as I canceled his loan and shut down their mortgage. What happened next? Shattered the legacy they tried so hard to protect. This happened over the course of about 8 months, and I'm finally ready to share the whole story. It's long, but stick with me because the ending is absolutely worth it. TLDR at the bottom for those who want the quick version. Some people say revenge is a dish best served cold. I disagree. I think revenge is best served systematically, methodically, and with compound interest. What my family did to my children was unforgivable, and what I did back to them was inevitable. Fair warning. This gets pretty intense toward the end, but every single thing they got was deserved. I've never felt better about destroying people who had it coming. I'm 34, work as a master electrician running commercial jobs around the city. Been doing this for 12 years now. Started as an apprentice right out of high school while my family kept pushing me to go to college. Make around $85,000 annually. Own my truck outright. Got my own small crew of 3 reliable guys. Not wealthy, but comfortable. The kind of stable middle-class life that used to mean something before everyone got obsessed with tech money and social media influence. I specialize in commercial electrical work, office buildings, warehouses, retail spaces. It's honest work that requires skill, problem-solving, and physical endurance. I take pride in what I do, even if my family never understood that a trade could be just as valuable as a college degree. Maybe more valuable considering I don't have student loan debt and I'll never be out of work. 3 years ago, I was married to Jessica, and man, what a colossal mistake that was. Picture the most stereotypical gold digger you can imagine. Bleach blonde highlights that cost more than most people's rent, fake nails, fake eyelashes, fake personality, the whole manufactured Instagram package. She thought she was influencer material because she had 3,000 followers from posting gym selfies and motivational quotes she stole from other accounts. Never held a real job longer than 3 months. Just spent my money on designer bags, weekly spa treatments, and girls' trips to Miami with her equally shallow friends while I worked 50-hour weeks to pay for her lifestyle. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags from day one. She always introduced me as her electrician boyfriend, in this tone that made it sound like an apology. Never wanted to come to work events or meet my crew. Would constantly suggest I should think bigger and find my passion, like honest work wasn't good enough for her vision of our future. We had 2 kids together who are my entire world, and the only good thing that came from that disaster of a marriage. Mason is 9, into baseball and video games. Smart as heck and funny in that way kids are when they don't know they're being hilarious. Kid can remember every stat for every player in the major leagues but forgets to brush his teeth half the time. Emma is 7, total opposite personality. Quiet, artistic, always drawing these incredible pictures that I hang all over my fridge like it's a museum. She sees the world differently than most people, notices details that adults miss, and has this way of making simple observations that hit you right in the heart. Both kids are amazing despite having Jessica as a mother. They're resilient, kind, and way more mature than they should have to be, thanks to watching their parents' marriage fall apart and dealing with their mom's abandonment. Jessica left us 3 years ago for some software consultant she met at a yoga class. Typical tech bro. Drove a white Tesla, had one of those ridiculous man buns, wore expensive sneakers that cost more than most people's car payments. The whole Silicon Valley wannabe package. She literally packed her Louis Vuitton bags while I was installing electrical panels at a new warehouse and left a note saying she deserved better and that I was holding her back from reaching her potential. What potential? The woman couldn't balance a checkbook, had never held a job longer than 6 months, and thought entrepreneur meant selling makeup samples to her friends on Facebook. She was 28 years old and had accomplished absolutely nothing except marrying a guy who could pay her bills. The divorce was absolutely brutal and expensive. She took half my savings, money I'd worked overtime for years to accumulate, got alimony because she claimed she sacrificed her career for motherhood. What career? Her longest job was 3 months at an upscale boutique before she got fired for showing up late repeatedly and spending more time taking selfies than helping customers. The family court system is a joke when it comes to protecting working fathers from parasitic ex-wives. Here's the worst part about Jessica. She barely sees Mason and Emma. Shows up maybe once a month when it's convenient for her schedule, takes them to McDonald's for an hour, buys them some cheap toy to assuage her guilt, then vanishes again for weeks. But she posts pictures on social media every single time to maintain her illusion of being Mother of the Year. Makes me physically sick seeing her get praise from strangers for doing the absolute bare minimum while I handle everything else. homework, doctor appointments, school events, emotional support, discipline, daily care, everything that actually matters. But the real kick in the teeth came from my own biological family. My mom, Patricia, 62 female, dad, Robert, 65 male, and younger brother, Jake, 29 male, all blamed me for the divorce. Said I wasn't husband material, and that Jessica had no choice but to find someone who could provide for her properly. I wasn't already providing everything she could possibly need while she contributed absolutely nothing to our household. My mom actually had the nerve to tell me I was too blue collar for someone like Jessica. Said I should have elevated myself if I wanted to keep a woman of her caliber. My dad said I should have stepped up and gotten a college degree instead of settling for trade work. Jake, who's a part-time barista at Starbucks and still lives in my parents' basement at 29 years old, had the incredible audacity to say I let a good woman slip away and should have treated her better. The disrespect was absolutely unreal, but what came next was infinitely worse. They started treating Mason and Emma like damaged goods, like the kids were somehow contaminated or broken because their mom left. It started small but escalated quickly, forgetting birthdays, not inviting us to family barbecues, making passive-aggressive comments about how the kids needed stability and proper role models and strong family influences. I should have cut them off right then, should have seen what was coming and protected my children from their toxic behavior. But I kept hoping they'd come around, kept making excuses for their horrible treatment, kept trying to maintain family relationships for the kids' sake because I thought Mason and Emma needed their grandparents. That was my biggest mistake, and I'll regret it forever. Last Christmas morning started absolutely perfect. I'm not rich, but I work hard and save money specifically to make sure my kids have good holidays. Got Mason this gaming chair he'd been wanting for months and a brand new Xbox controller with custom designs. Emma got this massive professional art set with 50 different colored pencils, markers, paints, brushes, and this fancy sketchbook with heavy paper. Their faces when they opened those presents, pure, unfiltered joy. That expression of complete happiness is what being a parent is really about. We spent the morning playing video games together, and Emma drew me this incredible picture of the three of us as superheroes. She made me the dad superhero with electrical powers, Mason had super speed, and she gave herself the ability to bring drawings to life. I've still got it hanging in my kitchen, and it makes me smile every time I see it. Around 2 p.m., we loaded up the truck and headed to my parents' house for our traditional Christmas dinner. This has been family tradition for over 20 years. Big meal, present exchange, the whole holiday celebration that's supposed to bring families together. The kids were incredibly excited because they'd spent all morning making cookies for everyone. Chocolate chip for Grandma because those were Mom's favorite. Snickerdoodles for Grandpa because he always requested them. And these absolutely crazy rainbow-colored ones that Emma designed herself with about 6 different food colorings. They'd wrapped them carefully in festive tins, written little cards, and Emma had even drawn pictures of reindeer on the gift bags. Mason carried the cookie tray like it was made of glass, being so careful not to drop their hard work. When we pulled into the driveway, I immediately noticed Jake's girlfriend Chelsea's car parked in the prime spot right next to the front door. This girl is absolutely something else. 23 years old, works part-time at some overpriced boutique in the trendy part of town, acts like she's European royalty because she drives a leased BMW 3 Series that her wealthy father pays for. She'd moved in with my parents about 6 months earlier after Jake couldn't afford rent on his own apartment anymore, which tells you everything you need to know about both of their life situations. Chelsea has this entitled attitude, like the world owes her something because she's moderately attractive and comes from money. She treats my parents' house like her personal palace, rearranges furniture without asking, invites friends over for parties, and generally acts like she owns the place. My parents let her get away with everything because they're desperate for Jake to have a girlfriend who might motivate him to finally move out and become independent. I knocked on the front door with the kids standing behind me in their nice Christmas outfits, Mason holding the cookie tray carefully with both hands, and Emma clutching this little gift bag she'd decorated with stickers and ribbon for hours the night before. We waited for almost 3 full minutes in the cold December air. Finally, Mom opened the door with this expression I'd never seen before. She looked at the cookies, looked at my children standing there in their Christmas clothes, then looked at me with this face like we'd just tracked dog waste across her white carpet. "We need to talk," she said to me in this cold tone, completely ignoring Mason and Emma standing right there with their gifts and homemade treats. "Okay," I replied, confused by her attitude. "But first let the kids give you their cookies. They worked really hard on them this morning and they're excited to share them." That's when she dropped the bomb that changed everything and destroyed any remaining relationship we had. Actually, Nicholas, we've decided that this year Christmas dinner will be for immediate family only. You know, people who actually belong here. I swear, my brain just stopped processing information for a solid 10 seconds. Mason's face completely crumpled, and he almost dropped the tray of cookies. Emma stared up at Grandma with this confused, heartbroken expression, like she couldn't understand what she was hearing or why Grandma was being mean to them. What do you mean? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm and steady, even though my heart was pounding with rage. Well, Mom said, and I could see Chelsea standing behind her in the hallway with this satisfied smirk, like this was all some kind of joke to her. Jake and Chelsea are starting their life together, and we want this to be special and comfortable for them. Having complications would just make things awkward and tense for everyone. Complications. She called my beautiful, innocent children complications. Emma tugged on my jacket sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, what's a complication? Did we do something wrong?" That's when something inside me just completely snapped, but I kept my facial expression neutral. I wasn't going to lose control in front of my kids and give these horrible people the satisfaction of seeing me break down. "Come on, kids," I said, as calmly as I could manage. "Let's go somewhere we're actually wanted and appreciated." We turned around and walked back to my truck in complete silence. Nobody called after us. Nobody tried to stop us or apologize. I could actually hear Chelsea laughing inside the house as we drove away, and that sound echoed in my head for the entire drive home. The ride was silent except for Emma asking repeatedly if she'd done something wrong, and Mason staring out the window, still holding those cookies we'd made with so much love and excitement. But here's the thing that my family completely underestimated. I wasn't just hurt or angry or sad. I was calculating. Because these people had absolutely no idea what they'd just started or who they were messing with. We ended up at my buddy Tyler's house because I needed somewhere safe for the kids while I processed what had just happened. Tyler and I served in the National Guard together before I got into electrical work full-time. He's one of those guys you can count on for anything. Solid, reliable, would give you the shirt off his back without asking questions. Married to this amazing woman named Sarah, they've got 3 kids of their own who are roughly the same ages as Mason and Emma. When I called him from the truck trying to keep my voice steady, he didn't hesitate for even a second. "Bring those kids over here right now," he said firmly. "Sarah's already setting extra plates at the table, and the kids are asking when Mason and Emma are coming over. That's what real family looks like. No questions, no conditions, no judgment, just immediate acceptance and support when you need it most." Within an hour, Mason was playing video games with Tyler's boys, and Emma was helping Sarah make chocolate chip pancakes, because apparently Christmas pancakes are a beloved tradition in their house. The kids were laughing and playing like nothing bad had ever happened, which is exactly what children should be doing on Christmas Day. While the children were distracted and happy, I told Tyler exactly what went down at my parents' house. This guy's got a serious protective streak when it comes to kids getting mistreated, and I genuinely thought he was going to drive over there and physically fight my dad in the front yard. "Bro," he said, shaking his head in disbelief, "that's not just disrespectful or rude. That's straight-up emotional abuse of children. What kind of monsters reject little kids on Christmas Day and call them complications?" That's when the full reality really hit me. I'd been making excuses for my family's progressively worse behavior for years, but what they did today crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed or forgiven. Tyler asked me something that completely changed the entire game. "Don't you co-sign your brother's car loan?" I did. Last summer, Jake's credit was absolutely garbage because he'd defaulted on credit cards and had missed payments on everything. He needed reliable transportation for his job and begged me to co-sign for this used Honda Civic. Promised he'd make every single payment on time. Said he just needed someone with decent credit to get approved for financing. The monthly payment was $320, which isn't huge but adds up over time. "And don't you help your parents with their mortgage sometimes?" Sarah asked from the kitchen where she was making hot chocolate for all the kids. Also completely true. Dad's pension got reduced significantly last year due to budget cuts, and they were genuinely struggling to keep up with their house payments. I'd been quietly covering their mortgage for 4 months straight, $1,850 monthly going directly from my account to theirs. They never asked me directly, but Dad would mention how tight money was getting, and Mom would sigh dramatically about possibly losing the house we've lived in for 30 years. So I set up automatic transfers from my account to help them out. They never even acknowledged the help, just took it for granted, like I owed them financial support. "So let me get this completely straight," Tyler said, leaning back in his chair with this expression of total disbelief. You're financially supporting people who just told your children they don't belong in the family? When he put it like that so directly, I felt like the biggest fool on earth for enabling their behavior. That night, after Mason and Emma fell asleep in Tyler's guest room surrounded by new toys his kids had shared, I sat at his kitchen table with my laptop and started making some serious changes that would have permanent consequences. First, I called the auto loan company and removed myself as co-signer on Jake's car. Took about 20 minutes and several security questions to verify my identity, but it was done. Jake would receive official notification in 3 business days that his loan was being called due immediately unless he could qualify for the financing independently. Spoiler alert, he absolutely couldn't qualify on his own. Second, I canceled the automatic transfer to my parents' mortgage company. No warning, no explanation, no second chances, just stopped the payments completely. Then I did something that felt absolutely incredible. I opened a new savings account specifically for Mason and Emma's future college funds. Set up that same $1,850 monthly transfer to go there, instead of enabling people who treated my kids like garbage. My children's future and financial security was infinitely more important than supporting ungrateful people who didn't want them around anyway. But I was just getting started. This was only the foundation of what was coming, and I was going to make sure they regretted their choices for the rest of their lives. The next week was honestly the most peaceful I'd had in months. We stayed at Tyler's house through New Year's, and for the first time in forever, I wasn't constantly stressed about family drama or walking on eggshells around toxic people. The kids were genuinely happy, I was sleeping better, and Sarah started talking about how we should make this arrangement more permanent because the kids all got along so well. Tyler's family treated Mason and Emma like they'd always belonged there. No weird comments, no passive-aggressive behavior, no making them feel unwanted or burdensome. Just natural acceptance and inclusion in everything they did. Then, January 3rd arrived, and my phone absolutely exploded with notifications like a bomb had gone off. First message was from Jake at 6:47 a.m. "What the heck did you do? They're taking my car." Then Dad at 7:23 a.m. "The mortgage payment didn't process. Call me immediately." Then Mom at 8:15 a.m. "Nicholas, we need to talk right now. This is extremely serious." Then Jake again at 8:43 a.m. "Dude, seriously call me back, this is bad." Then Mom again at 9:12 a.m. "This isn't funny anymore, Nicholas." I was sitting at Tyler's kitchen table drinking coffee and watching Mason teach Emma some complicated Pokemon card game strategy. Ignored every single message and just enjoyed the peaceful morning. Jake called around 10 a.m. and he was completely panicking, practically screaming into the phone. I answered just to hear him lose his mind. "Dude, what the heck happened? The loan company says you removed yourself as co-signer? They want the full balance paid in 30 days, or they're repossessing the car. This has to be some kind of mistake." "That's really unfortunate," I said in the calmest voice I could manage. "Maybe you should have thought about that before letting people tell my kids they weren't real family." "That wasn't my decision. That was Mom and Chelsea's idea. I didn't even say anything. I just went along with it." "Exactly. You sat there quietly and let it happen. Actions have consequences, little brother. Or in your case, inaction has consequences." He started yelling about how I was ruining his life, and how was he supposed to get to work without reliable transportation. I reminded him that the city bus system existed, and that maybe he should have thought about maintaining his credit score before asking me to co-sign. Then I hung up. Dad called next, trying his best to stay calm, but I could hear the underlying panic in his voice. "Son, there seems to be some kind of error with the mortgage payment this month." "No error, Dad. I stopped making it." Complete silence for like 30 seconds. I could practically hear his brain trying to process this information. "You can't do that. We had an understanding." "No, we didn't. I was helping family out of generosity. But apparently my kids aren't family, so neither am I." More silence. Then he got angry, which was a huge mistake. "This is about Christmas? For crying out loud, Nicholas. You're being childish and vindictive. Your mother made an error in judgment, but you can't hold that against everyone." "Watch me," I said, and hung up immediately. I blocked his number and felt this incredible wave of relief wash over me, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Here's what these people completely failed to understand. I'd been carrying them financially for months while they systematically treated my children like garbage. They took my money for granted while simultaneously rejecting the most important people in my life. The best part was knowing this was only the very beginning of their problems. By mid-January, the real desperation and panic started setting in hard. Jake's Honda got repossessed on a Tuesday morning right outside the Starbucks where he worked, in front of all his co-workers and customers. Tyler happened to drive by and saw him walking home in the pouring rain, looking absolutely miserable and defeated. Apparently, Jake had been telling anyone who would listen that his selfish brother had screwed him over for no reason, but nobody wanted to hear his sob story because everyone knew Jake was chronically unreliable and irresponsible. My parents received their first official mortgage delinquency notice that same week. Mom started calling me from different phone numbers, trying to get around my blocks, leaving increasingly frantic voicemails that progressed from angry to desperate to completely pathetic. Nicholas, please call me back. Your father had chest pains yesterday from stress. We need to resolve this situation like adults. Delete. This is absolutely ridiculous. You're going to let us lose our house over a misunderstanding? What would your grandmother think about this vindictive behavior? Delete. I know you're upset, but taking it out on your father isn't fair. He didn't do anything wrong here and his health is suffering. Delete, delete, delete. But here's where the story gets really interesting and satisfying. Remember Chelsea, Jake's entitled girlfriend who was smirking in the hallway when my kids got rejected? Well, turns out when Jake lost his car and couldn't afford to take her to expensive restaurants and shopping trips anymore, she decided he wasn't boyfriend material after all. She moved all her stuff out of my parents' house and back in with her wealthy father within a week of the car repossession. Jake was absolutely devastated by the breakup. Started staying up all night playing video games in the basement and sleeping until 2 p.m. Lost his job at Starbucks for showing up late repeatedly and arguing with customers when they complained about slow service. Now he was unemployed, transportationless, single, and still living in my parents' basement at 29 years old with no prospects whatsoever. The carefully constructed house of cards was collapsing exactly like I knew it would, but I still had several more devastating cards to play. During this time, I also made sure to document everything meticulously. Every nasty voicemail, every guilt-trip text message, every attempt at emotional manipulation. I had a feeling I'd need comprehensive evidence later, and I was absolutely right about that instinct. My lawyer reviewed all the documentation and confirmed that I had zero legal obligation to continue supporting any of them financially. In fact, he was genuinely impressed by how thoroughly I'd protected myself legally while still delivering devastating financial consequences. He also pointed out that their behavior toward my children could potentially be considered emotional abuse if it continued, and that I had solid grounds for a restraining order if they tried to harass us directly. February brought a discovery that completely changed the entire game and gave me the perfect weapon for total destruction. Turns out my parents weren't just struggling with their mortgage because of Dad's reduced pension. They were struggling because Dad had been secretly gambling away his retirement money on day trading and cryptocurrency speculation, losing almost $40,000 over 6 months. I discovered this when Dad called me late one night from some 24-hour diner, completely breaking down emotionally and rambling about how everything was falling apart and how he'd made terrible mistakes with investments. He was actually crying on the phone, talking about how he might lose everything and how Mom didn't know the truth about where their money had really gone. But here's the absolutely beautiful part. I recorded that entire conversation, completely legal in my state since I was a party to the call. Dad spilled everything in detail. The secret trading account, the massive losses, all the lies he'd been telling Mom about why they needed financial help. Mom had absolutely no idea about the gambling addiction. She thought they were struggling solely because of his pension reduction. Dad had been lying to her face for 8 straight months while burning through their retirement savings. So I did something that was absolutely perfect in its poetic justice. I sent Mom the complete recording along with screenshots of Dad's trading account that he'd stupidly given me access to months earlier when he was trying to get me to invest with him in his guaranteed money-making strategies. The explosion was absolutely spectacular to witness from a distance. Mom kicked Dad out of the house immediately, screaming at him in the driveway loud enough for neighbors to hear. He's been living in an extended stay motel for over a month now, spending what little money he has left on a room that costs more per week than most people's monthly rent. Jake is still living in the basement like a 29-year-old teenage loser, but Mom's seriously talking about selling the house anyway because she can't afford it alone, even without the gambling losses eating their savings. The absolute best part of this entire period, Jessica heard about all this family drama through mutual acquaintances and decided she wanted to reconnect with the kids because she assumed I was having serious financial problems and might need her help. She showed up at my apartment with this completely fake, concerned expression plastered on her face. "I heard about what happened with your family," she said, trying to look sympathetic and caring. "If you need help with the kids financially, I could maybe take them more often. I'm in a much better position now with my new relationship." Translation: she thought I was broke and desperate, and wanted to swoop in and play savior mom for her social media followers. I just laughed out loud and showed her my current bank statements. See, while all this family drama was happening, I'd been saving that $1,850 per month, plus working extra overtime hours on weekends. I was sitting on almost $18,000 in savings, more money than I'd ever had in my life. Actually, Jessica, I'm doing better financially than I've ever done. Thanks for the generous offer, though. Her face when she realized I wasn't the struggling single dad she thought I was? Absolutely priceless. She left without saying another word. So here we are in March, and the chickens have officially come home to roost in the most satisfying way imaginable. My parents' house went into official foreclosure last week. The bank filed all the paperwork and posted legal notices. Mom has been calling me constantly from different numbers, and now the voicemails are just pure, desperate begging. Nicholas, please, I'm literally begging you on my knees. We'll lose everything we've worked for our entire lives. I know what we did was horribly wrong, but please don't let this destroy our family completely. Your father wants to apologize properly. We both do. The kids are welcome anytime, I swear on my mother's grave. Please just call me back so we can fix this. I'll do absolutely anything you want. I'll kick Jake out permanently. I'll make your father get professional help for his gambling. Whatever you think is right. Just please help us save the house. Jake sent me this incredibly long, pathetic email talking about how he'd learned valuable life lessons and wanted to make things right between us as brothers. He mentioned seriously considering joining the military, sure you are, buddy, and wanted my advice and guidance as his older brother. The desperation was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Even Chelsea reached out on Instagram asking if Jake and I had worked things out because she still cared about him deeply. Yeah, right. She just heard through mutual friends that I had money and thought maybe Jake's situation was improving enough for her to come crawling back. But the absolute pinnacle of satisfaction came last Saturday at Mason's baseball game. My parents just showed up in the stands like nothing had ever happened, trying to act like loving, supportive grandparents, cheering for their grandson. They brought signs with Mason's name and everything, really going all out with the performance. After the game ended, Mom approached me with tears streaming down her face and this desperate expression. Nicholas, they're such beautiful, wonderful children. I've missed them so terribly. Please, can't we just move past all this negativity? Family is supposed to forgive family, no matter what. I looked at her for a long, uncomfortable moment, then said loud enough for other parents and players to hear clearly, "These are the exact same kids you told weren't real family 6 months ago. Interesting how your perspective changed dramatically when you needed something from me." Her face turned bright red with embarrassment, and she tried to stammer some excuse, but I just walked away with Mason and Emma before she could manipulate the situation further. Mason looked up at me curiously and asked, "Dad, who were those people in the stands? They seemed to know us." "Nobody important, son. Nobody important at all. Here's what really happened over these past 8 months. I didn't just cut them off financially. I systematically exposed every lie, every weakness, every character flaw they'd been hiding from their social circle. The entire extended family and community now knows about Dad's gambling addiction, Mom's enabling behavior, and Jake's complete failure to launch into functional adulthood. They've become the family embarrassment and cautionary tale instead of me. The same people who used to judge me for my failed marriage and blue-collar job now whisper about their financial irresponsibility, poor parenting, and moral failures. Meanwhile, my kids are absolutely thriving in ways I never expected. Mason made the All-Star baseball team, and his grades improved dramatically once we removed all the toxic family stress from our lives. Emma won the school art contest with a beautiful painting of our new life, and both kids sleep peacefully every night without anxiety about family drama or feeling unwanted. We spend all our holidays with Tyler and Sarah's family now, and their kids have become like cousins to Mason and Emma. The children call them Uncle Tyler and Aunt Sarah naturally, and it feels more genuine than any biological relationship ever did. I've got over $20,000 in the bank now, my electrical business is expanding rapidly, and I'm dating this wonderful kindergarten teacher named Amy, who thinks my kids are absolutely amazing and treats them like they're her own children. She's everything Jessica pretended to be: kind, genuine, hardworking, intelligent, and absolutely loves spending time with Mason and Emma. Amy helps Emma with art projects, comes to Mason's baseball games, and never once made them feel like burdens or complications. The kids adore her, and she's become a positive female role model they desperately needed. My former family is completely scattered and destroyed. Dad's living in a motel burning through his remaining savings while dealing with gambling addiction. Mom's facing foreclosure and social humiliation throughout their community. Jake is unemployed, single, and still living in a basement at 30 years old with no prospects. And they're all dealing with the consequences of their own terrible choices, while I built something infinitely better. The mortgage company called me yesterday, asking if I wanted to assume the loan on my parents' house at a significant discount. Apparently, I'm still listed as an emergency contact on their accounts. I told them I wasn't interested and suggested they contact the current owners about a short sale. The beautiful irony? I could easily afford to help them now, but they burned that bridge permanently when they rejected my children. Sometimes the best revenge isn't dramatic confrontation or elaborate schemes. Sometimes it's just removing yourself completely from toxic people's lives and watching them destroy themselves while you build something beautiful with people who actually deserve your time and energy.